In this Fextralife video, we're going to be talking about the best MMOs to play right now. 2024 had a couple of decent releases, but 2025 is already looking way more exciting. Whether you're into chill games where you can fish and decorate a house, or hardcore raids that'll test your patience and your reflexes, there is something on our list for you. These aren't just games I googled 5 minutes ago. I've either played them, followed their development, or kept up with their community, so I'll talk about how the games actually feel to play, what makes them fun, and why you might want to try them out. Final Fantasy XIV is one of those rare MMOs that feels like it gets better with time. It's built up a reputation not just for its huge expansions, but for its incredible storylines, detailed world building, and a community that generally cares. With the Dawn Trail expansion, the game brought a lighter, more adventurous tone after the emotional weight of the Shadowbringers and Endwalker. It also got a fresh coat of paint with visual upgrades, making this long-running MMO look and feel surprisingly modern in 2025. This is the kind of MMO that lets you play however you want. Some people dive deep into high-end savage raids and ultimate fights that demand real coordination and focus. Others spend their time crafting, fishing, collecting outfits, and decorating their in-game houses. And you can do all of this on one character, since Final Fantasy XIV lets you unlock every class and job without needing alternative characters. The combat is clean and responsive, with fights that often feel like puzzles you solve in real time, and if story matters to you, the main scenario quest is fully voiced and plays more like a high-end JRPG than just quest filler. Whether you're here for the glamours, the gold saucer minigames, or the epic 8-man raids, Final Fantasy XIV continues to be a gold standard for what a modern theme park MMO can offer. Next on our list is RuneScape. RuneScape was the gateway MMO for an entire generation. Whether it was chopping trees outside Lumbridge, grinding runes in Varrock, or risking everything on a wilderness run, this was the game that defined online adventure for so many players. In 2025, it still thrives in two very different flavors. RuneScape 3 is the modern version with polished graphics, voiced quests, and ability-based combat systems that feel closer to traditional MMOs like WoW. Old school RuneScape, on the other hand, captures the raw charm of the 2007 version. It's community-driven, minimalistic, and still one of the most grindy and rewarding MMOs out there. What really makes RuneScape unique is the freedom it gives players. There are no fixed classes. You can skill your way through woodcutting, fishing, herblore, construction, or crafting without ever swinging a sword. And for players who want challenge, the Iron Man mode and hardcore PvP scene add serious risk and reward. Old school RuneScape in particular has taken on a life of its own. The player-driven economy is as complex as some real-world markets, and group content like raids in the Inferno keeps even veteran players hooked. There's a reason it still pulls in huge Twitch audiences and active YouTube communities. New content is still rolling out in both versions, and with RuneScape Dragon Wilds in early access, Jagex is clearly betting big on the future. That one deserves its own spotlight in a future post. Whether you're a returning player or someone finally curious about what all the hype is about, RuneScape remains one of the most approachable and addictive MMOs out there today. Up next is Dune Awakening. Dune Awakening is one of those games that sneaks up on you. It might look like a typical survival MMO at first glance, but the way it blends survival mechanics with the political tension of the Dune universe makes it stand out fast. The journey begins on Arrakis, and the survival hits hard right from the start. You're managing hydration, gear durability, shelter, and the constant threat of sandworms. Even gathering spice becomes a strategic game of resource control and territorial risk. For fans of high-stakes PvP or deep player economies, it delivers a surprising amount of complexity. What makes it work isn't just the setting, but how fully the systems support the fantasy. You can build your own stronghold, customize suites for desert travel, and eventually pilot ornithopters across sweeping dunes. The crafting and base building systems have real depth, and nothing feels throwaway or filler. Everything you make or own matters. The political layer is where things really get interesting. Factions can clash over spice routes and territory, and forming your own great house isn't just flavor text. It's part of the social structure, and it brings an almost EVE Online vibe to the game's sandbox. Guilds can rise or crumble depending on how players manage alliances, trade, and power struggles. PvP zones are intense. Getting ambushed while hauling a valuable spice load is nerve-wracking, and that tension keeps players coming back. But for those who want a quieter path, there's still space for exploration, base management, and small group PvE missions that feel immersive and rewarding. Dune Awakening isn't the kind of MMO that holds your hand. It asks you to pay attention, plan ahead, and carve out your role in a dangerous world. That challenge is part of what makes it so compelling, especially for players who want something slower paced, but still packed with tension and choice. Next is Monsters and Memories. If you've ever caught yourself missing the old school MMO days like EverQuest or early World of Warcraft, Monsters and Memories is basically made for you. This isn't a modern theme park MMO with quest markers on every inch of the map. It's slower, more social, and designed to make every pull, group, and zone feel meaningful. The game is being built by a small team of MMO veterans, and you can feel the love for the genre. Combat is slow and tactical. You're actually thinking about positioning and threat. If someone overpulls, you're all going down. You're expected to communicate and form real groups, not just queue up and burn through content silently. Visually, it has this hand-painted low-poly look that totally reminds me of early 2000s MMOs. But under the hood, it has depth. There are 18 classes planned at launch, and they're not watered-down hybrids. They play differently and fill actual roles in a group, so it really brings back the feeling of we need a healer or find a CC class like in the old days. The game world is seamless, no instance zones. If you're camping a rare mob, there's a good chance someone else is doing the same. It creates tension, interaction, and yeah, sometimes a bit of loot drama. But that's part of what made MMOs special back then, isn't it? And here's the kicker. No cash shop, no battle passes, no premium cosmetics. It's a sub-based game where everything you get, you earn by playing. That alone is refreshing in a time where most MMOs throw convenience microtransactions at you from the very start. Right now, Monsters and Memories is being tested through early builds, but it's showing some serious potential. If you're the kind of player who used to stay up way too late trying to win a roll in a rare drop, you might want to keep an eye on this one. Next is Chrono Odyssey. Chrono Odyssey is one of those MMOs that really caught my eye the moment I saw the first trailer. At first I thought, okay, another shiny Unreal Engine 5 MMO that'll probably be all cutscenes and no substance. But we've been keeping tabs on this one, and it looks like it might actually deliver something different. The world you're exploring is called Cetera, and the whole concept revolves around time manipulation. You get access to this artifact called the Chronotector, and it's not just a cool piece of lore. It actually lets you bend time in combat. Like you can rewind out of a bad dodge, slow down a boss's attack to line up a counter, or freeze enemies just long enough to land a perfect combo. That's not something you see in MMOs very often, and if they can pull it off, it's gonna feel absolutely amazing. Combat-wise, it leans more toward action RPG than classic tab target MMO. You've got 6 classes at launch, and each one comes with 2 weapons you can swap between on the fly. That adds a nice layer of flexibility, as one minute you're swinging a massive sword, and the next you're raining magic from a distance, and it all looks super smooth in motion. The game also seems to be putting a big focus on the world itself. It's fully open with seamless transitions, dynamic weather, a day and night cycle, and big zone-wide events that could easily turn into impromptu boss fights or faction battles. Honestly, the world reminds me a bit of how Guild Wars 2 handles big public events, which is a huge plus in my book. What I'm most curious about is how the game handles progression and PvP. They've hinted at open-world conflicts and meaningful faction wars, but no full details yet. If it manages to combine that with flashy combat and time mechanics, we could be looking at something pretty unique. Right now, we're still waiting on a final release date, but if you're into fast-paced combat, gorgeous worlds, and the idea of literally controlling time mid-fight, Chrono Odyssey should definitely be on your radar for 2025. Next is the Elder Scrolls Online. If you're the kind of player who loves losing yourself in a fantasy world with deep lore and rich exploration, Elder Scrolls Online is still one of the best MMOs out there in 2025. It captures the feeling of playing a single-player Elder Scrolls game, but scales it up for an online world that actually feels alive. This is one of those games where you can log in just to go fishing, decorate your house, or explore a zone you've never been to. It doesn't push you into raids or PvP if that's not your thing, and if you're into group content, ESO has solid dungeons and large-scale trials that still offer plenty of challenges. One of the best parts of ESO is how flexible the character building is. You aren't locked into some rigid class fantasy. Want to run around as a heavy armor sorcerer who uses a bow and summons Daedra? Go for it. The game lets you mix and match gear, weapons, and skills in a way that rewards experimentation instead of punishing it. Combat is action-based with real-time blocking, dodging, and weaving in light and heavy attacks between your abilities. It's not quite as twitchy as games like Black Desert, but it's more active than the classic tab-targeting MMOs. Once it clicks, it feels smooth and satisfying. The storytelling is also criminally underrated. Quests are all fully voice-acted, and some of the narratives are on par with what you'd expect for a single-player Elder Scrolls title. The recent Gold Road and Necron expansions especially step things up, with new zones, Daedric plots, and quality-of-life upgrades that make exploring feel rewarding again. ESO also has some underrated systems that give it a lot of staying power. The housing system is incredibly detailed. The in-game card game, Tales of Tribute, has a dedicated following. And then there's Cyrodiil, the giant PvP war zone where 3 factions fight for territory. Whether you're sneaking into keeps to flip flags or defending sieges with ballistas, It's one of the few MMOs still doing realm versus realm right. This is the kind of MMO that you can play however you want. Whether you're a casual explorer, a fashion hunter, or a sweaty DPS main chasing parses and trials, ESO gives you the tools to play your way. And the best part? It's still going strong with more updates on the horizon and one of the most stable communities in the genre. Up next is Star Wars The Old Republic. Star Wars The Old Republic has been around for over a decade, and somehow it still holds up. If you're into Star Wars lore and classic BioWare-style storytelling, this MMO is a goldmine. Each class has its own fully voiced cinematic storyline, and they're not just minor variations either. A Sith Inquisitor's arc plays completely differently from, say, a Smuggler or Republic Trooper. It's like getting 8 different RPG campaigns in one package. Even in 2025, it's still one of the best story-driven MMOs out there. You're not just following quest markers, you're making real choices, influencing outcomes, flirting with companions, and making decisions that can turn your Jedi into a renegade or your bounty hunter into a soft-hearted merc. It's the kind of MMO that feels like a proper Knights of the Old Republic 3 if you play it solo, but there's enough group content to keep things fresh when you want to team up. Sure, the engine feels a little dated, and the combat isn't as snappy as newer MMOs, but the writing and world building still carry very hard. The recent expansions like Legacy of the Sith and the consistent seasonal events have kept the game active and updated, even if the dev cycle has slowed a bit in recent years. Flashpoints, the game's versions of group dungeons, are short and story-packed, and operations, raids, still offer plenty of challenge for guild groups. PvP also still has a dedicated scene, especially in war zones and dueling hubs. With all the legacy perks and account-wide unlocks, progression feels more streamlined than ever. Star Wars The Old Republic is one of those games that might not be on everyone's radar anymore, but it deserves to be. If you've ever dreamed of carving your own path in the Star Wars universe and actually having your choices matter, there's nothing else like it in the MMO space. It's a bit of an underdog these days, but for fans of classic RPG storytelling, this one still hits all the right notes. Up next is Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation is easily one of the most ambitious MMOs on the horizon, and it's been on my radar for years. I followed it through dev blogs, early live streams, and now Alpha 2 footage, and it really looks like something that could shake up the genre. What makes Ashes different is the way the world actually reacts to the players. The biggest feature is the node system. These are areas that level up based on how players interact with them. If enough people quest, gather, or live in a spot, it turns into a village. Keep it going and it evolves into a city. But if another group rolls through and wipes it out, the progress is gone. So every server ends up looking different depending on who's playing and what they're doing. That kind of dynamic world building is super rare in MMOs today. Combat uses a hybrid system letting you pick between tab targeting and action-based mechanics. So whether you grew up on World of Warcraft or prefer something more like Guild Wars 2, you can find a rhythm that works for you. Positioning and timing really matter here, and fights I've seen so far actually look challenging and satisfying. One of the most interesting systems is caravans. You can transport goods from one area to another for profit, but other players can ambush you on the road. It's a great way to make trade meaningful while keeping PvP risky and exciting. The economy is also localized, so prices and availability depend on what your specific region has. No global auction house means every player-run city becomes a real economic hub. It feels like a mix of EVE Online's political drama and Albion's player markets, all wrapped in a fantasy world. Crafting, naval combat, housing world bosses, castle sieges, they're putting a lot on the table, and while the game's not finished yet, the devs have been super open with development progress and community testing. If you're into MMOs where your choices actually shape the world and where guilds and player-driven politics matter, Ashes of Creation might be the next big thing. I'm already planning to squad up with friends when it launches, and I've got high hopes that this one can deliver. Next up is Corepunk. Corepunk kind of caught me off guard when I first saw it. At a glance, it looks like a blend of Diablo, League of Legends, and an old-school MMO. If you're into that top-down, Fog of War-style gameplay and love exploring the unknown, Corepunk might surprise you. The Fog of War mechanic is one of its standout features. You can't just see everything on the map from the jump. It forces you to actually explore, check every corner, and stay aware of your surroundings. It creates a real sense of mystery, especially in PvP zones where danger could literally be right around the corner. Combat is tight and tactical. It's not about button mashing. You gotta be aware of your positioning, cooldowns, and terrain. Every hero or class you pick has its own distinct playstyle, and there's a lot of room for experimentation. I saw a support character using a shock rifle to heal and disable enemies, and it was one of those, okay, that's actually cool moments that made me want to try it myself. Corepunk also leans into old-school progression. You quest, grind, explore, group up for dungeons, and dive into PvP with your build and gear on the line. It reminds me of the MMOs I grew up with, but with a more modern polish. No flashy cinematics or gimmicky systems here, just solid systems, clear goals, and a satisfying gameplay loop. It's still in early access and not without bugs, but the potential is there. If you're someone who liked the vibe of classic MMOs but wanted something fresher and maybe a little more tactical, Core Punk is worth keeping an eye on. And last on our list is World of Warcraft. No matter what's trending, World of Warcraft always finds its way into the MMO conversation. It's the giant that shaped the genre, and even in 2025, it's still going strong. Whether you're logged into retail for the latest expansion or diving back into Classic to relive the old school magic, WoW continues to deliver something for almost every type of MMO player. Retail WoW feels like a massive theme park. You've got polished quest lines, deep raid systems, massive world events, and now with the War Within expansion dropping in August, a whole new set of tools to keep your alts connected through warbands and hero talents. These new systems have made class progression feel deeper without locking you into rigid builds. It's the kind of game that can pull you back in for hours just exploring, running dungeons, or chasing transmog sets. Classic WoW, on the other hand, is where the community vibe still hits the hardest. Season of Discovery has brought wild twists to class design with new runes that let you do things like tank as a mage or heal as a warlock. And then there's Cataclysm Classic, which adds a more polished but still nostalgia-packed experience. If you're the kind of player who misses social dungeon runs, open-world PvP, or just hanging out in Stormwind or Orgrimmar while chatting in general, Classic is still the real deal. Combat in WoW is as tight as ever. It's smooth, responsive, and every ability feels satisfying to use. The dungeon and raid design still sets the bar for structured PvE content, and Mythic Plus continues to be the gold standard for repeatable challenge-based group content. The thing that keeps WoW alive isn't just updates, though. It's the world itself. Azeroth has a way of feeling like home whether you've played for a week or a decade. You log in, mount up, hear the familiar music, and something just clicks. It's comfort food for MMO players, but it's also still evolving in smart, player-friendly ways. After 20 years, World of Warcraft has nothing left to prove, but it's still finding ways to surprise and satisfy players old and new. Whether you're here for the high-end raids or just to vibe in Goldshire, WoW still earns its spot on any list of best MMOs to play today. So that wraps up our list of best MMOs to play right now. Some of these are in early access still, and they kind of come in and out of playtest periods, but should be available very soon. But I want to hear from you. What MMOs are you currently playing? Are you sticking to the classics, or are you waiting for that new shiny MMO to come out? What are your favorites? Did we miss anything? Let me know in the comments below.